Without further ado, let's start our prepared speeches of the night. Our first speaker tonight, of course, our very own veteran, Jeff, who is working on his pathway, innovative planning 2-2, connect with your audience from 5 to 7 minutes. He has chosen a topic that is unfamiliar to the majority of his audience and challenges himself to keep us engaged. Today, November 11th, is Veterans Day. This is the day of celebration and recognize for all those who have honorably served in the United States military services. Jeff Denecke is a U.S. Army veteran having served from 1972 to 76. Jeff, I'm not yet born. Jeff will speak to us about the history of Veterans Day and the subtle changes over the past decades to its original intent. He will also speak about his personal experiences, those other veterans, with the hope that it will add to our understanding of what is asked and what sacrifices might be required of the men and women who do choose to serve in the U.S. military. Let's all welcome Jeff Denecke on his speech titled Veterans Day. Thank you for your service.
Okay, thank you, Madel. Yes, I am a United States military veteran. However, I know of little reason for you to thank me for that service, as it is more common to hear these days. Oh, you may if you wish, and I will graciously accept, as I do when offered veteran discounts at participating businesses. It is not difficult at all for me to say thank you for thanking me and then to move on. I'm not attempting here to trivialize my 4 years of service. It is honorable to be willing to bear those experiences of being cold or wet or cold and wet. Those minor discomforts fall far short of sacrifice, especially while never being real active threat. Allow me to tell you all about the origin and the evolution of Veterans Day. Back in 1918, during the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, an armistice, an agreement to stop fighting, was declared between the Allied nations and Germany. This followed 4 years of globalized slaughter and destruction. The Great War, as it was over, leaving an estimated 23 million people dead in its wake. Civilian deaths were primarily caused by exposure, military encounters, massacres, where military deaths were usually the result of the effectiveness of artillery, small arms, and poison gas. The people who had survived were traumatized by the madness they had lived through. They were horrified by what they had witnessed, and they were overwhelmed by the task of rebuilding their lives, their communities, and their nations that lay before them. The following year, on November 11th, many countries commemorated Armistice Day as a day to honor the memory of everyone who had died. Most people had hoped that this was the war to end all wars. They wanted to know everlasting peace and prosperity. The world paused. In 1926, the US Congress passed a resolution for the annual observance of Armistice Day. November 11th became a federal holiday in 1938. Then came World War II. The slaughter and the destruction resumed with a vengeance. An estimated 70 million people died, either as a direct result from the war or from war-related famine and disease that it had generated. With 5 years of relative peace for the United States until the military found itself in Korea from 1950 to 1953, where armies fought and died under brutal conditions with the civilian population once again paying a ghastly price and lives lost as well. The US public had grown weary of wars by then, and when veterans returned from the Korean conflict, they found that they were far less celebrated than their World War II counterparts. For them, the Korean War became known as the Forgotten War, and the veterans from that war, the Forgotten Veterans. In 1954, the 83rd Congress, under pressure from veterans organizations, amended the 1938 Act by replacing Veterans Day over Armistice Day. From then on, November 11th became a day to honor American veterans of all wars. Later, when men returned from Vietnam, they came home to protest over what history would prove to be an illegal and unjust war. Some veterans joined the marches of protest in the streets against a war that had left over 58,000 Americans dead, and well over 1.5 million civilians dead as well. By the 1970s, November 11th was recognized as a tribute to all veterans, living or dead, but especially living veterans who had served their country honorably during war or peacetime. Following Vietnam, the United States military was relatively conflict-free until 2000, when war with Iraq and Afghanistan commenced, and which has led to 7,000 Americans being dead so far, and the number, of course, is climbing. Today in Great Britain, Europe, and in the Commonwealth, Armistice Day is still observed with 2 minutes of silence at 11 a.m. each November 11th. My father never spoke of his experiences during World War II with the Marine Corps until late in his life. We learned from other Marines, veterans who had shared his experiences at Guadalcanal and on Okinawa, that my father had done some awesome things to save his fellow Marines. But those memories stayed with him, and it affected him throughout his life. My family military heritage can be traced back to the Civil War. My grandfather's grandfather, Frederick Denecke, signed up for the forced draft in New York. He was refused due to his age being 36, and that he was deemed an essential worker. My great-great-great-grandfather, shoemaker. I have an uncle, my mother's only brother, who is buried in the cemetery at St. James, France. 2 brothers who were career Marines, a grandfather who served in World War I, an uncle who served in the Navy during Korea, and a nephew who has just finished his military service. I also grew up across the street from a memorial park, so I was always aware that extreme sacrifices had been made to live free. Several years ago, there was a song titled Crazy by a gentleman named Gnarls Barkley, and there is a line in it that has resonated with me when I think about those men. It says, my heroes had the heart to lose their life out on a limb. And all I remember is thinking, I want to be like them. I want to have their heart. So when I hear someone thank me for my service, I accept it, always, on behalf of those who have truly earned it. Thank you for listening, Madam Toastmaster.